All right, well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto. This will be the long-anticipated 2020 Lexus LC500 review. So I made a few videos talking about this car already, so it has been established. This is my own personal vehicle. It's not a press car. It's not a dealership car. It's not anything like that. So, but I guess with all good things, let's just talk about the looks of this bad boy. This car, I think for like under $100,000, this is going to be the most striking looking car. The car that's going to attract the most amount of attention for the money. I think this and the C7 or C8 Corvette, that's going to get the most amount of looks and stares. If that's what you're looking for, you're going to get that with this, especially in this infrared color. It's quite something for sure. Now you have those little Jaguar F-types, some little AMGs, a little F-type that looks like a slightly enlarged British Miata, so that doesn't attract a whole lot of attention. Neither do the AMG cars, the M cars, those sort of things. It doesn't really do it. So this is one of the few cars you can get. It just looks stunning, and that's just not my opinion. Everybody's breaking their necks out on the road to look at this thing like it's some type of a Ferrari. That's the level of attention that this vehicle gets. Now, videos, pictures, none of these things will ever do this car justice in terms of the overall shape of this car. I thought, honestly, people just brush this thing off like it's any other Lexus car, because let's be honest, every other Lexus does utilize this grille and all that good stuff. So, but no, that's not the case. People do recognize this car for what it is. They might not know what it is, but the shape of this car cannot be captured properly on video. This car has like this hourglass shape, which is just so unique and special. Already breaking the speed limit, very good. So we'll get to that in a bit, but yeah, it's got this hourglass shape. Like, it's really wide up front, and then it like tapers in for the doors, and then it gets wide again at the rear, like the hips of the car. It gets really wide again, and that's just like a design element that you're just not going to be able to appreciate unless you see it in person. But let's enough of that. Let's just bend this corner real quick. It doesn't really get that sideways on you, especially if you have the traction control on. It'll never really get out of hand. Yeah, anyway, I'll just mention one last thing about the looks and we'll move on. The paint of this car, it's a unique paint job for this car only, the infrared. No other car shares this paint, and it does look stunning. In some cameras, like my Sony A7 III here, it might look a little orange, but there is no orange in this. It's just a really nice, deep, like cherry red. It's really fantastic. This is a no compromise car, and that's what people of the internet need to understand. I'm going to try to explain myself here in this review. So I've had this car for a little over a week now, about 2 weeks, and I've done about 486 miles in this thing. So I have pretty good experience with this car. I've recently driven the C8 Corvette. I've pretty much driven something from pretty much every brand, if you will. I've driven AMGs, M cars, the Vets, the F-types. I've driven all these things. So why did I go and buy this car? I think, again, like I mentioned, it's that no compromise experience, and this is a car that Lexus and that their team of engineers, drivers, whatever, got together, and they wanted to create the ultimate street car. Not some race car not some street car pretending to be a race car or anything like that. This is a proper vehicle made to be fully exploited out on public roads with speed limits, and that's the key to this car. I've been driving around in the normal mode, and I think even the normal mode is calibrated extremely well for street driving. It's actually like fun to just kind of tip into the throttle and then kind of hear that motor a little bit, and you're kind of wafting off. It's like a deceptive amount of speed actually that this car has. But you can flip it into the sport mode. You can play around with the paddles, and that's part of the euphoria of this car, is to experience this motor, this transmission. This car is the trifecta of noises. It's got the induction sound, it's a proper V8, it's got an exhaust, it's got all the proper noises going for it. None of it is fake, all of it is real. It's truly astonishing. These are the practical pleasures that I wanted to experience out on the road. I've driven the ridiculously powerful twin turbo cars. I've driven cars that are easily faster than this. I've driven the Tesla P100Ds, and I know what that's like. I know how it blurs your vision, how it just all the blood rushes from your skull all the way back in the head. I get those feelings and those sensations, but it's just you get 2 seconds of fun, and then you're back on the brakes because you're afraid of cops or whatever, right? That's a practical thing. I just passed a cop right now. He's just chilling on the side of the road trying to catch a bright red sports car, if I'm going to be honest with you. And that's the thing, a lot of, I guess, younger people, even adults, if you never experienced proper powerful cars, you don't know how just stupid and unnecessary those cars are until you've actually driven something like that. But this car, it's still an absurdly quick car for what it is. It's still it's 471 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque coming out of this 5-liter V8 engine. Once you ring this thing out in its entirety of 7,300 RPM, you're breaking every speed limit. I think practically, at least you can ring this out without being too out of control from second to third gear or something like that, but you're still doing damn near 70 miles an hour once you ring it from second to third gear. But let's bend this corner real quick. This car can get sideways on you, but only when you have the traction and everything, stability, everything turned off. That's the only way you can actually exploit the proper rear-wheel driving nature of this car. Otherwise, when it's really difficult to upset this car. This is a car, if you haven't properly driven rear-wheel drive cars, this is the perfect kind of first rear-wheel drive car for you, because it's really difficult to get it unsettled, and even when you do lose it, it's really easy to bring it back. It's so easy to just drive this car. At first, I was a little bit timid of this car, primarily because of the price tag and the heft and the gravity that this car brings with it. But after I got used to it, I've been busting big drifts on the intersections and all that good stuff. I'm pretty much sliding this car around constantly because it's just so easy to do that. It's just, I'm not the best driver in the world, but even an amateur like myself can exploit this car like that. Again, that's part of the fun. It's fun out on the road. That's the beauty of this car. And this throttle pedal is like a succubus continuing to tempt man to continue to thrust into it. You know what I'm saying? That you always want to get into that throttle pedal and listen to that engine sound. I will say though, it's quite a bit of money. You can obviously get faster vehicles, and I would say, a lot of you people who can't seem to understand this car, you can't wrap your head around this car, I do recommend that you go out and you do purchase those, high horsepower cars, because horsepower is readily available to you at not a lot of money. You can get a $35,000 Camaro, brand new, that will probably run circles around this car in terms of the performance, and it'll still be a ton of fun for you. You can easily get Z06 Corvettes, those C7s, you can get Hellcats, all that good stuff. I recommend you to go purchase something like that and experience just how pointless something like that is, and then you'll be able to finally come back into something like this, despite, it is quite a bit of money. But you can get into something like this and you'll begin to appreciate it, because you can use all of this out on the road for the most part. I'll tell you another thing about the power of this car. For 2018, that's when this car first came out, but 2019, that's kind of when they reprogrammed a few things. They refined the suspension a little bit, and then they reprogrammed the transmission. So they primarily retuned the transmission in order to cope better with the kind of half throttle maneuvers, kind of like this. I am in Sport Plus right now, but even in the normal mode, right? If I just want to, just give it a little something, it does kind of, for the most part, effortlessly pick up. But I will say, if you haven't driven super, super fast cars, or, okay, let's say you have driven really fast cars and you get into this for the first time, and you're just kind of driving in normal mode and you punch it, from a dig, right? You'll be like, oh man, it doesn't have that initial thrust, and it doesn't. You have to build it up. It does build up. It's really cool the way the power builds up in this thing, because honestly, you know how the newer turbo cars, when you punch it from a line, from the dig, you get all that thrust up front. This, you do get that sensation, but it's after 4,500 RPMs. It's really crazy. It will give you that pushing sensation, but only past 4,500 RPMs. I've never felt that before. You can continuously ring it out, and then once you get past that 4,500 RPM, that's when it almost kicks in like a VTEC type of thing, except you really feel that thrust now. It's really quite a sensation. I absolutely do love it. It's the greatest pleasure I've ever had driving around in the car. This was everything I ever wanted and hoped a vehicle like this to be. When I purchased this vehicle, I didn't even test drive it until after the fact that I purchased it. So I drove this car without even knowing anything about it, but I knew it wouldn't disappoint. I just absolutely knew it wouldn't. I will say, if you drive it 2 or 3 times, you'll really begin to absolutely appreciate this thing for what it is. Also, right there, brakes are absolutely tremendous. That's one of the things. This car stops, it goes, it turns, it kind of does everything. So this thing has some big, meaty brakes on it, and it just stops on a dime for sure. But it's a nice progressive brake pedal for street driving. Again, calibrated perfectly for the streets. Every time I do that, you're breaking the speed limit. So it's just like, I don't understand all these superheroes that keep complaining that this isn't enough for their money or whatever. I actually think that they underpriced this car. 100 grand is too cheap for a car like this. You're about to see that in the interior. This should have been at least 150 grand. I mean, people have no problems paying $250,000 for an Aston Martin. I mean, it's got the big boy Martin badge on it, I will admit to that. However, this is that type of car. It's playing in that realm, like a Bentley type of car. That's what this is supposed to be, except it's built with this is the epitome of quality, in my opinion. Lexus will do it best. This car, the way it is right now with about 500 miles, this is exactly how it's going to feel 100,000 miles from now. And that's the true quality that I was seeking. I really wanted a Hellcat. But even if I did get a Hellcat, I feel like every car I've owned, they were stepping stone cars for me to get to this point right here. So this is what I've always wanted. I've recently driven a Maserati Gran Turismo. Granted, it was a little bit older. It was a 2013 model year, but this was pretty much smoother, more refined, faster. It was just better in pretty much every conceivable measure. So this is like that Maserati Gran Turismo type concept, except realized properly by Lexus and just made even better. That's one of the other pleasures. Like, everything from the steering is weighted so perfectly, the brakes, the ride quality of this car, everything is just so perfect, so smooth. It's still a Lexus. That's the proper thing about this vehicle that I really love so much about it. And this isn't really so much of a review. I'm actually just explaining to you what this car is like to drive, because truthfully, I actually can't really find anything to fault with the driving of this car. I actually cannot realistically find anything. I think the primary thing was like the 2018 cars, they were saying that for 5/10 driving or something like that, like it wasn't programmed that correctly. It kind of had like this deadness into it, whereas this, it kind of fixed that, so that's great. It's just superior for just street driving now, so that's been fixed. But yeah, here, let's talk about that ride quality now, because this thing is riding on some big boy dubs, 21-inch wheels wrapped in these kind of Bridgestone run flat tires. If you want to complain about one thing, I guess it's those run flats, and it's not really a big complaint because this car is still very quiet, very comfortable. This car is still very comfortable for what this is, even with these wheels. That was kind of like my only concern going into this. I actually really wanted a model with 20-inch wheels, but again, like I mentioned, they actually revised the suspension of this car. I really thought that this would have like a very jittery kind of ride, but honestly, it really doesn't. It actually rides really well. I have zero complaints about the ride quality of this vehicle. It doesn't feel jittery, it doesn't bounce me around, doesn't jostle me about. It's actually, if I'm gonna be honest, like I recently reviewed the 2020 RX 350. I think this is a very similar type of refinement to the 2020 RX 350, as crazy as that sounds. Now, the only thing is, you do get a slight amount of tire noise, and I think that is due to these run flat tires. I think if you put some Michelins or Continentals that are like, those Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires or something like that, I think this could be a little bit quieter still. And it's a great thing to know. You can kind of remove these run flats and you can get an even better driving experience, so that's fantastic. But this car, another complaint that a lot of people who've never driven this car have is it's too heavy. It's 4,300 pounds pretty much. Now, I'm not gonna lie, that is actually a lot of weight for a coupe. I actually personally don't understand that weight figure myself, because this car actually does utilize a lot of lightweight materials. A lot of these suspension components are forged aluminum, what I'm saying? These doors are like carbon reinforced plastics being used on it, and it's just like, how is it so heavy when it utilizes all these like lightweight materials? This door feels like it weighs a ton on its own. And I don't understand that, but whatever. Actually, this complaint that people have, This is another thing that I really like about this car. It's another positive for me personally. I'm going to explain. So 4,300 pounds, that's what these heavy curb weight cars, I actually like it a lot because it gives you this sense of this pinned down sensation. It feels like it's just kind of digging into the tarmac. It just has like this hefty quality feel. It's like you pick up a Breitling watch and you compare it to like an Armatron or something like that. You know, you feel that heft. That's kind of like what this car is. You feel the quality when you drive down the road in this. And a lot of the European cars don't even have this heft to it, this weight, this quality. This is the highest quality vehicle that I have experienced thus far. And the other thing is, this car masks a lot of that weight due to the excellent chassis of this thing. This is by far the best Lexus chassis that you can ever get. I think it's even superior to the LFA, I think, in terms of torsional like rigidity and all that good stuff. I think this is superior to the LFA supercar, which is just insane to me. But when you have a heavy curb weight vehicle mixed with an amazing chassis, that's really when you get like the ultimate kind of like driving experience out on the road anyway. This is something that those racing freak drivers can't really understand. You know, if you're such a racing freak, why don't you just get a race car, an Ariel Atom? Why don't you just tool around in that all day? Or even better, if you're such a speed freak, get a motorcycle. Realistically, I want the ultimate road car, and that's what I have here. Just incredible to ring this thing out. This car, because it's a true luxury car, you know, when you're moving around, you're almost always doing 10-15 miles per hour over the speed limit. That's that quality feel that this vehicle has. It is so quiet. It doesn't actually have like double pane glass or anything like that, but it's a very thick paned glass actually. So it does a great job in just refining it and it just blocking out the elements actually. And you really only just get that engine tone and that exhaust tone primarily, and also the induction. So there's no pumped in audio, it's just that tube that they filter in some induction sound. And actually, like, you know, a lot of people flip out over that. They all get excited when they hear that this LC500 has it. But honestly, if you get an IS350F Sport or RC350S Sport, those cars will have that intake tubing as well that runs and pipes in that induction sound into the cabin. So, you know, but this is just on another level because it's that proper V8. This is that F model V8, of course, that 5-liter. But it just eats up these back roads. You can do hella miles in this car because it is so comfortable, so composed, and it just eats up those turns because it has an amazing chassis and it just rides so good. You can just do like 3,000 miles in this thing and not even know it because these seats also really help out with that. And we'll talk more about that in the interior segment. So I kind of talked a lot about what this thing is like to drive. So what makes me want to actually go out and purchase something like this? Obviously, it's a very emotional purchase, and there are cars that are on paper better, I guess. What I like about this is above spec sheets. You can't quantify this car just by the numbers alone, and that's why I love it. And cars that are built like that, those are typically the best kind of cars. You know, in a lot of cases, I really like older cars. You know, like I drove some 1994 LS 400. I've driven some old like AMG Benzes and things of that nature, and I absolutely was so fond of driving those cars. It's not particularly better than the newer AMG cars or like the newer Lexus cars, I guess, but there's a sense of emotion, a sense of attachment that you get. And, you know, if you're such a car enthusiast, I can't believe like you can't realize that or just put that together. You know, like I can't believe you can't appreciate this special vehicle that Lexus has created. You know, when Lexus designers got together to make this car, you know, I think it was a racing driver or the engineer or somebody, you know, they picked up a sword. You know, they went to like sword training classes to you know, handle a sword, to see how polished and whatever, like sharp it is or whatever. I don't know what it was, but that's the consensus that they had when they built this car. It's ridiculous. I've never seen like, you know, some guy from General Motors go and study the way of the sword or whatever. You know, the Bruce Lee, you know, you become like water, you put the water in the teapot, it becomes a teapot thing. Like, you know, they I don't know if, yeah, it's just there's a sense of emotion that went into this car, and you feel it when you drive it. That you have to understand my perspective. You know, I review cars. I've reviewed hundreds of cars. I'm jaded. I'm heavily jaded. I'm not like a regular consumer anymore. You know what I'm saying? So to me, a lot of new cars, they feel dead to me. Like they just feel like nothing, like emotionless cars made either to please a spec sheet or just to, you know, they just exist for the sake of existing or to fill in a gap in their, you know what I'm saying, in their lineup of cars or whatever. Kind of like what BMW is doing, you know. So this car, it's not about that. This car wasn't built to sell a whole bunch of units or to... It was built primarily to bring happiness to the person who finds this car and actually drives it. You know what I'm saying? When you look at something like an LFA supercar, which trades for well over $500,000, when it first came out, everybody's like, why would you pay $350,000 for a Lexus? And then now that they stopped making it, now you can't get one for less than $500,000. So that just goes to show that you pay for the experience with this car. This is as close as normal humans like myself are going to get to that amazing LFA supercar. But again, much like that car, nobody appreciates it as of right now. You know, something like a Hellcat, you know, yes, granted, it has a ton of horsepower, but it's not particularly good at anything, not even in a straight line because it can't put any of its power down. But it's just an occasion. It is an experience to like drive something like that, and that's what this car is too. It's an experience. It is pure ecstasy to wring this car out, to listen to that motor, even if you're not going balls to the wall with it, even just tooling around speeds, just cruising around. It's such a pleasure. Now, obviously, you can get a similar experience with something like an RCF or a GSF because it does utilize the exact same motor, right? Just a slightly different tuning. However, I haven't driven those cars. I've driven cars like the RC350 and the IS350 F Sport, and I love those cars. I absolutely adore them. I think those are also, again, you know, Lexus created those cars to be satisfactory out on public roads. This is just kind of the ultimate version of that, if that makes sense. But even though I haven't driven an RCF or a GSF, you know, obviously it's going to build upon the RC350 F Sport, right? I think you're still going to get an amazing experience. I don't think you're not going to get this interior, and you're not going to be getting the chassis that this car has. Just how like neutral that this vehicle feels. It's just something that you do need to go up to this $100,000 price point to be able to get that experience, I feel like. And this is the best that Lexus kind of threw together, and it does show that. It really does truly show that. But yeah, for all those like hard asses out there, you know, spec sheets, all that good stuff, you know, I've driven your Messiahs, you know, your C8s and all this stuff, and honestly, I don't feel quite as attached to those vehicles as I do with this. They didn't leave like a lasting impression. Now, the other cars I do truly like are the F-Types and some of those AMG cars. Again, please do lease them or get a hefty warranty on them. But I do like those cars, but I don't think they represent the epitome of quality. Like if you look at this interior, the interior of this car makes every other car's interior look like a Motel 6 bathroom. So there is that. You know, this is going to be the best fit and finish out of a car. And again, you know, those cars, they have some serious horsepower that you can't really utilize out on the road. So again, I tried my best to explain to you guys what this thing is like to drive. Hopefully it made sense. Hopefully I did a good job of explaining what this thing is really like to drive. Again, it does everything that a car is supposed to do, that I would ever want a car to do. It does the job of a Lexus, to be quiet and comfortable. It does the job of a proper sports car and giving me a ton of confidence. It does have the torsion limited slip diff. I don't have the performance package. I didn't talk about this in the review, but you know, that $5,000 option, which gives you the rear wheel steering and the variable kind of steering ratio. I don't have that, or the pop-up spoiler in the back. I didn't really care too much about that. The main thing I wanted with this car was this interior color. But yeah, I don't have any of those things. I don't particularly miss those things. I think this is a perfect driving experience as it is. This is the most, I guess you can say, the most raw feeling LC because it doesn't have the performance package. I've driven cars like the Acura TLX that do utilize the rear wheel steering function, and I do like it actually. I think it'll feel even smaller and tighter, but this car is really easy to drive as is. It's really easy to bust U-turns in this thing. It's really easy to just sit in and drive. You know, it's I'm never worried about driving this thing around town. It's actually not a super low slung car. I can actually take speed bumps and go up little driveways and stuff like that. I'm not super worried about this car. Again, created properly to be driven out on the road, not some ridiculous race car that just sits low to the earth. You know, it's not one of those. And once you're seated, the seating position is so perfect. You set the rear view mirror. I mean, I can see around this car like a fishbowl. It is so easy. The mirrors are great. It's just a very easy car to drive, and that's another thing I really appreciate about it. Now, I'll make one last quick comparison with another vehicle just to give you guys a better understanding. I'm making some of these crude comparisons just to give you guys a proper idea, because this is not a car that you can just go out and test drive. Lexus dealerships just won't let you, drive this thing out, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of people lust for this car, and I want you to know what this is properly like to drive. So I'm going to make this crude comparison, and this is nothing like that car, but the Ford Mustang GT 2018 and up with the 5-liter, right? This car's power, it rings out similar to that. The Mustang has a very charismatic 5-liter V8, that Coyote, where it doesn't feel super fast, but it's just so rewarding to ring out, where it's just really satisfying to drive out on public roads, ring it out on public roads. So that's one of the specialties of that car, and this is kind of similar to that, except this is even more brutish. I think this is a little bit faster than a Mustang. Once you do properly ring it out, it does get up to speed extremely well, but this is as close to the Mustang engine. If you like that type of motor, you're really going to like this. So again, just a little comparison. I want to give you the best idea possible of what this thing is like to drive. I feel like a Mustang is a car that a lot of people have commonly driven, maybe. So just to give you an idea to the best of my abilities. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comment section below. If I missed something, please let me know. But let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior now. All right, so talking about the interior of this car, I've been in a lot of cars, and this is one of the few cars that actually took my breath away when I first looked at it, got in it, all that good stuff. I first saw it at a auto show, actually. This is also where I met my good friend Clarence, Seagar Speed 252, and his friend Don, right? He also has a YouTube channel, The Real Don. At that auto show, there was also a Rolls-Royce Ghost there. I sat in it, and I was like, out of all the cars at that auto show, this was the car I kept coming back to. Rolls-Royce Wraith, it is one of my dream cars in life, but honestly, this is the pinnacle of cars for me. This has done it for me. This is everything I ever wanted a car to be, and this is the car at that auto show I just kept coming back and kept looking at. It was the exact same car. It was red with this baseball glove looking interior, and I absolutely loved it, and I really wanted it. It's been like 2-3 years now since that event, so I'm finally in this thing. And again, the emotion from the exterior, from the drive, it even continues on into the interior of this car, which is just ridiculous to me. Everything about this. And also check out my LS500H review. It has a similar interior to this, but this is more of that sports car interior. This is the first car to pioneer this design. This color interior, it really highlights all the different materials of this car, the leathers, the suedes, the Alcantara headlining, just all these different materials, the different shades of this tan, the aluminum pieces. It's all absolutely phenomenal. This magnesium paddle shifters, I absolutely love it. It is just amazing. It is so much fun to use. Transmission reacts perfectly. I'll quickly mention this about the transmission. Once you start ringing this thing out, you start using these paddles, these magnesium paddles, this thing starts to shift faster than a dual clutch. It is absolutely ridiculous. But once you're just kind of tooling around in normal mode, it'll start to shift like a Lexus ES, for instance. So it's so dual purpose, just so dual nature. It's just so crazy. But yeah, everything about this car, everything you touch and everything you interact with, again, there is no compromises with this car. It's the highest level of quality car that you can possibly get, and I wanted that experience. That's why I owned this thing. These door handles, which the LS500H does use that as well. Just the flow of it, all the shapes of this interior is just absolutely stunning. Some of these switch gears, it does have the automatic window switches for the front, obviously these two windows right here, right, because it's a two-door car. These switches are similar to what you would get in like a RX or whatever, it's the same type of switches, but they're still quality switches. You do have a 3-way memory seating function, and they're not actually limited to just the key. There's no key 1, key 2 type of thing. This works just by, you just set it and just memorizes the seat, whatever you set it at. So that's kind of convenient. I do like that. You do have a heads-up display with this particular model. That I did get that. It's actually a pretty decent heads-up display. I'm not gonna lie. I actually, at first I wasn't using it, but now I'm starting to turn on and I do use it because occasionally in this car, with the way that I'm seated in the vehicle, it does kind of make sense for me to look at that heads-up display versus the actual gauge. So there is that. Now, speaking of the gauge, this is that gauge cluster where people just go gaga over, they oogle at this thing because it moves or whatever. You can get an IS350F Sport, it'll get the same gauges. So, if that matters to you, there you go. You can get it in much cheaper cars, but, it's that LFA gauge cluster, right? I'm not gonna lie, it's cool. It is one of the coolest gauge clusters out there. It's the best looking gauge cluster. It's like a piece of metal that moves about. It is pretty nice. It does show you all everything that you need to know. Obviously, it's a little screen inside of it shows you your fuel economy, which I'm getting about 14 city with aggressive city driving, me flooring it, me occasionally using the paddles, but this thing will get like 30 mpg out on the highway. So that's the power of these naturally aspirated engines. They get far better fuel economy than those turbocharged engines do. So that's another big advantage there. It's like you can practically own it again. This car does come with all the safety features. Yes, it'll stop on its own. It's got the radar cruise control. It'll pretty much drive itself. It'll even keep it in its own lane. Has all that good stuff going for it. So there is that. You have the automatic headlights, and if you kind of like move this headlight stock forward, it'll have like automatic high beams as well. So the automatic high beams, when you're driving at night, the regular headlights alone on this thing is phenomenal. They do such a great job. And it'll just automatically turn on and off. It'll detect if there's a car coming. So very convenient, does everything automatically. Automatic window wipers as well, so that's great. You have these little things here, these little knobs where you control the different drive modes here. I do either drive in normal mode around town, or I drive around in the Sport Plus mode when I'm using the paddles, and I put it into the manual setting. This thing will let you bounce off the rev limiter at 7,300 RPM. It is such an incredible noise to listen to. I absolutely love that so much, so that's great. Turn off the traction control. That's really the only way you're going to get this thing to properly slide about. When you have the traction control on, good luck with that. You're never going to get this car to slide properly, even with the torsion limited slip diff. And you'd have a snow mode, which whatever. You can turn on and off the HUD, the heads-up display from this button here. You have a trunk release. It doesn't open all the way, it just kind of cracks open. You have to like physically lift it up. You have the gas cap cover thing here. Seats. These seats, I do have the optional sport seats, if you will, with the glass roof option. It's like you get the option of sports seat and carbon fiber roof, which I did want, but I didn't get, but whatever. This sunroof is kind of neat, I guess. But these seats, these sport seats, are definitely worth it, depending on who you are, though. If you're serious about driving this car, I would heavily consider you sitting in this seat. It's a little tight in terms of the bolsters, and there's not actually a lot of adjustments in the seat. I think it's like a 6-way powered seat. It's not like a 45 power seat like you get in a Lincoln, which, a lot of cars in this class do come with like ridiculously adjustable seats. This car, it's perfect for me, these seats, but these bolsters are a little bit tight. If you're a little bit wider, it can be an issue, but for someone like me of just normal stature, just average body size, I'm 5'11", the seat is like perfectly made for me. I feel like this car is perfectly made for me. I fit in a glove in this car. So yeah, I really do like it. It's got like this breathable kind of microfiber suede kind of material going in between it, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. And I do notice like slight wrinkling, like a natural wrinkling note, not like you sat in it for like 10 years and it has like these wrinkles in it that way. But I think it's because this is like the proper like real leather. This is like not some fake stuff. This is actually like the real deal. So yeah, it's just super high quality seats. There's a lot of adjustability. I think you can be rather tall and fit in here, but if you want an all leather seating option, I think it's available. You just have to ditch this the sports seat option. So just be sure, get inside a dealership and sit in these seats. The only other adjustability that this car could do is just have like a flatter, bolster, like if you could adjust that, but I fit in here perfectly and I have zero complaints. This steering wheel is fantastic. No flat bottom. The only thing is that they could probably improve upon is like the kind of black plastic material that they have going around in the steering wheel here. They could have probably done that in a better kind of like this, if you at least made it into like this fake kind of like aluminum plastic kind of material, that would have worked as well. Similar material that they used to make this Lexus logo. They probably could have done that, would have given it a little bit more of a finish to it, but I'm not really tripping over it. It's not a big deal. The thing works, everything is perfect. You have your volume controls, you have the track selection knobs, you have the thing that keeps you in your lane. You can disengage that and all that good stuff. All your cruise control buttons are here as well. It's just so stupid easy to use. The ergonomics are just so perfect. They put a lot of time into this stuff, like seating positions, ergonomics, reaching things at hand reach for the driver, what I'm saying? So they did a lot of smart things like that. I initially complained about this gear selection knob, this electronic knob, but honestly I got used to it. I actually do like it. So I don't mind this. I think this is better than the BMW system. You just kind of like, knock it over, push it up for reverse, down for drive. You have a nice little backup camera in this vehicle, and it does have like the sensors that'll let you know, front and rear if there's something coming, and it'll start beeping at you if you start getting close to something. So it has all that going for it. And I will say this, getting in and out of this car, it's actually really easy to get into this in terms of the height. It's even easy for my parents. However, I will say that due to the bolsters of this, I'm always very cognizant of these bolsters. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to just, sit on top of this bolster type of thing. I feel like I'm just going to rip this bolster off, So I'm a little sensitive of that, but otherwise, like the height of this car, again, it's not super low slung. You don't have to contort your body to get in here, but these doors are super heavy. Again, I don't understand why, but they just are, and they open up really wide. So, just, a few little practical things like that you need to get used to. But anyway, talking more about this interior. So you have this little grab handle right here, finished in the utmost quality. Even has like this aluminum going through it. There's like aluminum all over the place, even in the place that you're not going to even see or look at. It's just so tightly put together. Nothing creaks, nothing rattles, nothing flexes. It's really just tremendous. You have the infotainment here. You do have Apple CarPlay, but you don't have Android Auto. You need to get the 2021 model year or order that to get the Android Auto as well. And you do get some further enhancements in terms of driving, like they shed some weight, like 22 pounds in rotational mass and all that good stuff around the wheels. So that's supposed to be the ultimate driving LC500, but this is fine. You don't get that Android Auto here. It's the same type of infotainment that you saw in the LS500H, so I'm going to leave that link in the description box for you to check out. I don't inherently have any real issues with it. I have noticed some glare with the screen. I don't like that when it's sunny out. Really, the only other thing I don't like is the way that the heated steering wheel, the heated seats, the cooled seats, all those controls, much like the LS500H, it's all buried inside of the screen. So there's no physical buttons for it. I feel like they could have easily made some space, somewhere up north of this shift knob here. They could have put some physical buttons here, similar to the RX 350 or something like that. So that's the only thing I don't like. You have to dig into the menu to, fumble with those controls. But otherwise, I just really hook up my phone to the Bluetooth and just listen to that amazing Mark Levinson. However, in this car, I don't really listen to music that much. I just listen to that engine. But it's a 13-speaker Mark Levinson, and it does sound absolutely tremendous. It's like one of the best audio systems ever. There's absolutely no compromises there either. You even get a CD player to get the utmost quality of your audio system. So you can really make use of this Mark Levinson. It's really, truly one of the best audio systems that you could ever ask for in a car. It is so crystal clear. The bass is good. Everything is good. But I listen to a lot of Ratchet, Key Glocks, Young Dolphs, things of that nature, Big Money Bag Yos, all that. So, it doesn't really, whatever. Yeah. So the controls that you have for the volume knobs, for the track selection knob, the tuning knobs, it's all of the highest quality. It is so good. Trackpad here to utilize this screen. It's not a touch screen or anything like that. It's the same type of unit that you've seen continuously in like the LS500s and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much there. Cubby spaces. This car is pretty much just a Hot Wheels toy, basically. This is a $100,000 toy. This is absolutely impractical in every way, shape, and form. There's nothing useful about this car. There's nowhere to put a phone. There's nowhere to put your wallet. You have one cup holder here, and you can put a plastic water bottle kind of like horizontally in the door pocket here, but that's pretty much it. This is another annoyance that I have with this car. This center armrest thing, it opens up kind of weird, and the passenger can't open it. It's not like a double hinge thing, but you have a decent amount of space in there, I guess. And you have your USB controls and the aux cable as well. And you can fit a few things in there. I guess I have a wallet in there, so there's that. It kind of just soft closes, so whatever. Also, I don't like the door handles in this car. It's very bougie. It's like it lays flush and flat. This car would look weird with traditional door handles, I guess. I wish it was more like a Tesla, surprisingly, where the whole handle kind of pops out. It's just kind of extra with this car, something I noticed. But yeah, the glove box is also kind of not really that big either, so you can't really put anything in here. And when you pop open the trunk, once again, there's really nothing that you can put in there either. I fit a few boxes in there. You might be able to fit a carry-on bag, I'm not sure, but like it's rather wide, but it's not that tall, if that makes sense. So it's just like, it's not a very practical car in any way, shape, or form. Golf clubs, maybe, I don't know, it might be wide enough at the absolute edge to maybe put like a full set of golf clubs, but I'm not sure. Rear seats, yeah, kind of worthless yet again. They look beautiful when you just look behind yourself. I think you could fit like a very small human back there, like a 5'2" person, I think can probably sit there. I try to sit back there. I don't think like a very tall person can sit here if that's the case, and I don't have much headroom, so there is that. And also I do have the sunroof as well. Sunroof feature that I have. This headlining material is very soft. It's just a very luxurious space, and again, that's what this car is all about, just the small touches. Like when I put this car into park, it automatically engages the brakes. The the parking brake, that is the electronic parking brake. So it's just like these small things that Lexus thinks of, and that's what makes this car superior. You know, it's just that ultimate daily driving car that you could ever ask for, and it was a dream machine for me, and I finally got it. It's just like, if you look at it in the light of spec sheets, you will never understand this car. You'll never appreciate this car. Most people won't, and once they stop making it, that's probably when the prices are going to go up, and you know what I'm saying? Like, that's when people are going to start to appreciate it, because in this world of turbocharging electric cars, to get this naturally aspirated V8, it's a true treat, and you can really utilize almost all of it. That's the biggest thing for me. That's what makes me fall in love with it. It sounds like pure euphoria. It's absolutely glorious to ring it out. It handles beautifully. It has a heft to it. It has a proper weight to it. It's a quality object. It's like a fine watch, a fine piece of jewelry, whatever. It's just an emotional piece too. Like, the people who made it, it translates through. Lexus, you did a great job with this one. Screw the people who don't get it. You know, they're just children. They don't know any better. They haven't driven this. They haven't even driven their super fast, fancy cars that they dream about. So they don't know anything. They don't know any better. So, you know, to take their advice and to, you know, their words have no merit. They carry nothing with it. So these are the honest thoughts of me, someone who's driven fast cars. That's why I went out and purchased this car. I'm tired of cars that all feel the same. I'm tired of cars that don't feel like anything at all. This makes me feel like something. This is just beautiful. It's an exotic car. It's not a supercar, but it's an exotic car, and it's special to me. If you're thinking about buying this car, I think you will love it, as long as your ego will allow it. You know what I'm saying? You really have to understand how pointless a lot of new cars are to really understand and appreciate this. So it's a long rant. I get it, but there's just a lot to say about this car. I need to really help people understand what this thing is all about, what makes it special. There's a lot of reviews on this car, but it's just a lot of them panting and flailing around, like, oh, it sounds so amazing, and then that's kind of the end of their review. You know, they don't really say anything of value and of meaning. Hopefully I was able to do that. It's very long. I'm just going to cut the camera now. Thank you again for all of you who are watching this and continuously support and watch all these reviews. I cannot thank you enough. Take care and goodbye.